Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network, presented by our friends at BetMGM. I'm your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by the one and only Shawn Smith of Frederick Douglass High School, the head honcho of Frederick Douglass High School. Shawn, how the heck are you?
I am fantastic, Jack Pilgrim. It's dead period. So I'm getting a little bit of some needed time off because I didn't really get that in the spring. But it's been a good couple of months to kind of get ready for what basketball is going to look like for me in the coming months. But I'm enjoying dead period at the moment.
You deserve it. We're looking forward to year one of the new administration over there with the Broncos. It's going to be a blast. We'll also have Spencer Smith joining. He's putting the 2-year-old down. Been there, done that, buddy. I feel you on the sleep schedule being all over the place. So we're just going to get started. We're going to yap for a couple minutes, and then he's going to jump on whenever. We're going to have the two Smiths on together, and I can't wait for it because they need to make up for my lack of basketball knowledge. Those two together are brilliant. Shawn says you're glitching bad. Steven, am I good on my end? Well, he's not even anymore. But
are you good? Yeah.
Okay. Shawn, you look good on my end. So if you want to leave or come back or whatever and fix it, but you look fine on my end. And we have Spencer coming on anyway. Let's get Spencer on. And Shawn, you punch out and see if that'll fix it, and then we'll do the same intro with Spencer. Spencer, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, Jack? Are we live?
We are live. Yeah, I was telling our listeners that you were putting the baby down, and that I've been there and done that, and totally understand that. Man, it is little sleep regressions are not very fun.
Yeah, no, it's not been fun, but we're fighting through it, and I got him down almost just in time, so I'm happy to be here.
Nailed it. You nailed it. So yeah, we'll Shawn's getting his. I think let's see how this works out. I think Shawn is back on. We'll see if it looks good. I see him in there, but where is he? He backed out. All right, whatever. How you been, buddy? What's the latest in the world of Spencer Smith?
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. I'm good. Last time I was on, I think I was in London. I think that was the last time I was on. So I'm back. I'm back stateside, which has been nice, and reading practice intel like the rest of BBN, which I'm excited to talk about. But yeah, things are good. We're doing okay.
Hey, I've really enjoyed this. Like, I think last summer was a learning opportunity for a lot of us, where you heard some things and you wanted to believe some things. You tried to kind of speak some things into existence, like the Trent Noah is the next Steph Curry stuff. Like, you really just wanted to God, I want it to be so true. And you just kind of fall in love with the idea of some of these things. And, when you don't see with your own two eyes, it's hard to kind of juggle all of that. So I've really tried to be more cautious about the intel rollout, and just, if a guy has a bad day, it's okay. It's week 2. We don't have to acknowledge that he's the best player in the world week 2 of his, since he arrived on campus. So there are going to be good days and bad days. There are going to be superstars. There's going to be absolute busts in individual days of practice that, if you stack these days together, it will hopefully give us, an actual closer vision to what we should actually expect for year 3 of the Mark Pope era. So, generally speaking, we can run through that while we wait for Shawn to get his glitching figured out. Generally speaking, guards, good, intel on it. Guards, very good. The 1-2 punch of Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins are living up to the hype as the creators, the 30+% assist rate that Mark Pope hyped from the minute he signed both of them. They're living up to the hype. Milan Momcilovic, exactly what he is, what he's going to bring to the table. Malachi Moreno doing some good things, still adjusting and kind of, taking on his new leadership role and looking at what a year 2 breakthrough as a superstar looks like. I think there's been a little bit of an adjustment period, but overall good things. The 4 spots, some good, some bad with Usman and Justin McBride. But then, some of the whispers that are not dying, refuse to die. Mason Williams, are you buying the stock in Mason Williams, Spencer Smith?
I'm buying stock I'm buying stock. Absolutely. I don't know if I'm buying a ton of stock for this season or if it's more of a little bit of a longer play. I don't know. From what I've heard, and all that from the practice stuff, I do think he's having moments in practice. I just want to be cautious with like how much pressure we're putting on him and then the hype. I think, I told you, Jack, I think my opinion is that if like people are expecting like an Caden Lewis type of freshman impact, Caden, because Caden was a guy who was probably undersold. And I think when he got to Villanova, he really, really made a big impact. And, a guy that you can really give the keys to and he can run the show and all that. I don't know if Mason's there, but there's a long way to go between June and November. So maybe he could be there. Really encouraging though, to hear he's making an impact. And honestly, it sounds like his work ethic is one of those things that is like really, really like something you kind of have to see to believe. It sounds
he
like
said he wants to be the hardest worker to ever wear the Kentucky uniform. Like, what a wild thing to say. Like, not, I want to be the best shooter. I want to be the best point guard or whatever. It's, I want to be the hardest worker.
And I love it. Like his dad wasn't like, very rarely was his dad just the most talented guy on the court or whatever. Right. But his dad was always known as a really, really hard worker and a really good locker room guy and a guy who just did stuff the right way. And you know what I mean? And that led to him having a very long, successful NBA career, NBA championship. So I would imagine he's like, hey, that's what my dad did. My dad just outworked everybody and just did stuff the right way and, stuck to the system and played his role. And like, that's what I want to do. So it makes a lot of sense if that's kind of his identity. And the early returns on his work ethic and the way that he kind of conducts himself and all that is really, really well. It sounds like he's a really kind of polished kid who's only 18 years old, which is a lot. So we'll see. We definitely need him, given our guard depth and stuff, which I'm sure we'll talk about. We definitely need him to come along between now and October, November to where he starts to really make an impact. But yeah, the early returns have been really good for him.
I think if we just look at it through a very particular lens of we need 12 bang up minutes from you every single night. Can you you're not taking minutes from Zoom Diallo. You're like Alex Wilkins. Those two, their roles are going, you're not going to nip at their heels for their roles. But if you can master your role as a bang up backup point guard, I think that's where you can set the bar. We can't, like the Caden Lewis, I think, is a great example of like, he's not going to come in and be a world beater and say like, is he threatening to land PG1 duties? Like that's not going to happen. But if we say he is unbelievable at accepting his role as the backup point guard, something that, will he be if he just accepts his role and produces at a solid level? Will he be the best backup point guard in the Mark Pope era?
Yeah, I joked with you, Jack, that it's not like there's stiff competition. You have Kerr Kriisa, for 8 games, and then you don't really have anybody in year 2, right? So it's not like there's stiff competition for that. But I do think he's like exactly the prototype of like what I would want in a good, solid backup point guard, or like a guy who you can project is going to be here for a few years, but you don't have to put the weight on his shoulders in year 1, which is kind of exactly what you want. So if you can kind of get him, to your point, 12, 14 minutes and really rely on him for that. And if he can make open shots, if he can defend at a high level, make hustle plays, they're not ranked similarly out of high school, but like that's kind of what Grayson Allen did his freshman year at Duke, was kind of the same thing. He played like 12, 14 minutes a game. He like hustled, he played the right way. He didn't make mistakes. He hit shots when he was open. And then he developed into a guy that they're like, hey, we're going to hand you the keys. I think Mason's a lot more likable than Grayson Allen was at the time. And they're not exactly the same player, but just in terms of that freshman year role, that would be a really, really good, great year for him. Whereas in year 2, we say, okay, this is now what your year 2 role will look like. And we're going to bump this up to, I don't know, who knows, 26 minutes a game or something. But yeah, you're exactly right. Like if we can count on him for 10, 12, 14 minutes a game and just say, hit open shots, defend your tail off, make hustle plays, don't turn the ball over. If you can give us that, that's exactly like you couldn't ask for much more from a kid in that position.
Shawn, hopefully we have you back and you're good. You good? Were you glitching or we?
It wouldn't be source to say without me popping in and popping out for some reason. So had to make up for all the lost time.
Yeah, no kidding. So we're talking about Mason Williams. We haven't gotten really a chance to dig in deep on your thoughts on the 1-2 punch of Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins. But the notes on the backups behind those two with good things on Mason Williams, but also Jerome Morton, who is a local product, not necessarily being a superstar in practice, not somebody who's going to come in and score 20 points on any given night, but somebody who has really embraced picking up 94 feet, bringing it to, tenacious approach and mentality to like, hey, I'm going to try to shut down Zoom Diallo. I'm going to try to shut down Alex Wilkins. The feedback I've gotten on my end is that the guards are going to consistently get better. Zoom and Alex Wilkins are going to be consistently better as the year goes on, because there's somebody behind them at both of those spots pushing them and bringing an edge that's like they both feel that they belong. What is the value of having those two as kind of a 2A, 2B counterpunch to the 1A, 1B starters that we have in Zoom and Alex?
I think it's very important. Obviously, you all were touching on, Mason Williams and stuff there as I was popping back in. And the biggest thing that we could talk about from the first 2 years of Mark Pope at Kentucky was just the lack of point guard depth, right? The lack of play. And they had, in year one, it was stacked injuries. And then year two, they just never could find any footing at that position because guys were having to be forced to be something that they weren't by the time you get into late December in SEC play. So, if Mason's able to give 10 to 15 minutes a game and get better and better and better as the year goes along, then you've already added an element that Kentucky hasn't had the last couple of years at that position. When you're talking about Jerome Morton, you're talking about a guy that understands what Kentucky basketball is and what it's about. And you can never have enough guys that just buy into the defensive end of the floor. And if you've got a guy that's how he contributes to and opposing team's best player or perimeter player, and if it's for 3 starts a game just to go on a 3-minute defensive run and just make stops, then Kentucky's already added 2 elements to its roster, Jack, that I think make it better than what they were a year ago. Because you need those guys that specialize in roles, and those are 2 roles that are needed to be successful in this league.
Spencer, a lot of I put out a plus post today of we've heard so much about the starters, but how are the backups doing? Like, is there a backup from the first 5 to the next 5 or 14 total? We have heard that Cam Williams remains out, Frank Kepnang remains out, Reese Potter has been in and out, but kind of back to doing some stuff today. Trent Noah, it was such a polarizing talking point this past year where he was, like we talked about at the start of the show, the Steph Curry of summer workouts. This time last year, I think Jalen Lowe said he's the best shooter he's ever seen. Mark Pope said that he's the best leader on the team and, the best veteran he's ever had. Like, really hyped him up. He starts out the year playing pretty well. And then his production essentially falls off a cliff, has a couple, rolled ankles and deals with some injury bug bites, but really you don't get much of anything outside of Texas A&M, Arkansas, and, a couple of fun moments against Tennessee. Like, really didn't get a whole heck of a lot from Trent Noah. But here we are, year 2 of this. And Mark Pope today on John Rothstein's show said that he was, the guy that nobody's talking about, that you need to be talking about. I have heard on my end that the role that he's playing, they've instead of bulking him up to try to make him a forward, they're leaning him down and trying to turn him into kind of a Milan Momcilovic light at 6'5", 6'6", whatever he is. And the quote that I got was, the best thing that could have happened to Trent's career was Milan coming. Just in terms of playing style, knowing what it looks like to be elite at what his role could potentially be. Are you buying all of this? Again, we're not saying that he's Steph Curry. We're not buying into it to that extent the way we did, unfortunately, last summer. We've learned our lesson. But what does a Trent Noah role look like in year 3?
Yeah, it's funny. And yeah, we're smart to be cautious. Like the thing with summer is, like, summer is all about kind of individual talent showing what it's got, but you're not really totally within your concept, and roles haven't been fully fleshed out yet. And then the rhythm of what you do in the summer is totally different than in season. Like, playing a 5-on-5 pickup game with your teammates is totally different than playing North Carolina in the first week of December, right? So it's very common that guys show out in the summer and have really, this is why this happens every year, all the way back to like the Matt Pilgrims back in the day with Billy Gillespie and stuff, where it's like you hear about guys showing out in the summer. It's because they're comfortable in what's happening in the summer and the pace and the tempo, and they're just playing with their teammates. And right, it's just totally different when you get to the fall and when there's 25,000 people in the stands and there's a couple tens of thousands more watching on TV and stuff. It's a different environment. And Trent's problem has always been that it just hasn't translated. It's like he's played well in the summer. We've heard really good things in the summer, but then as his role gets a little bit more defined, as the rhythm of the game kind of changes during the season, that just hasn't translated over. I do totally buy the idea that Trent can have a role and can make a difference. Jack, I was texting you earlier that like what we saw out of Trent down in Fayetteville is exactly what Trent can give us. He made a shot or two. He got to the free throw line. He made free throws. He didn't turn the ball over. He rebounded like a madman. He had 7 rebounds. Like all of what I hear from Trent in the summer is like he rebounds it well. He doesn't turn the ball over and he makes shots. What didn't happen last season is he just didn't make shots. Like you look at a game like we go on the road against Auburn. He plays almost 20 minutes. He gets 5 rebounds. Doesn't really turn the ball over, gets a couple of assists, but he just didn't make any shots. I think he was 0 for 3 in that game. In 6 minutes on the road against South Carolina in Columbia, he gets 5 rebounds in 6 minutes. Doesn't commit a turnover. I think he got an assist, but in that 5 minutes, he was also 0 for 4 from the floor, right? So Trent's problem has always been that he is a shooter that for some reason his shots aren't translating, and that's because of the rhythm and the pacing and just the pressure that goes with playing in an SEC basketball game, or and so as a junior, I would hope that Trent like gets more and more comfortable, and it's another year under Pope. It's a year of being a leader. I've had 2 years in the system now, but I think Trent can absolutely carve out a role where, again, similar to what we just talked about with Mason, can you give us 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 14 minutes, depending on the matchup? Can you get in there? Can you make a couple of open shots? Can you not turn the ball over? Can you rebound like a madman? Can you make hustle plays? That's exactly what he did when like down in Fayetteville and against Texas A&M and things like that. And those are like games where you look at Trent, you're like, I get the vision. He can play, but then you look at, 15 minutes that he played against Tennessee at home. And I think he only got up a couple shots and he turned it over a couple times. He didn't really rebound the ball. That's the Trent that can't play. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that we're hearing good things about Trent, because again, he's comfortable. He's in a rhythm. He's just playing with his teammates and all that. There's really no pressure. He's making shots. I love hearing that they're going to change up his role a little bit to make it maybe fit a little bit more what he's used to. And then I really hope that all summer it pans out and then in the fall it translates. But yeah, to your original question, I absolutely see a world where Trent can have a role on this team and can get minutes, but it will be entirely dependent on him continuing to do those little things. And then his biggest issue has been he just hasn't been making shots in games, and we need him to make shots.
And he struggled to make shots on a team that couldn't make shots. That was the other thing about it. So to me, how much of it too was just Kentucky never really got into a rhythm offensively that it felt comfortable with a year ago, that everybody kind of off. So you look back to year 1, he found a rhythm in some moments for Kentucky. Didn't find it last year, but I'm with you, Spencer. I think that he's a guy that could find a way to carve out a role as an upperclassman in the same program for 3 years. There's a benefit to that.
And Pope said to John Rothstein, he said the reason why Trent wasn't making, it was such an uncharacteristic shooter this past year where nothing translated from practice to games was that he had no creation. Like he is not a shot creator by himself. He has to have shots created for him, and there were no creators on the team. So when it's the Denzel Aberdeen show, when it's the Otega Oweh show, Trent's not in the spots that he had been comfortable with when it was Jalen Lowe over the summer, and go down the list of year 1 when when Lamont was healthy, when Kerr Kriisa was healthy, when we saw the best versions of Trent in practice, he had help over the season. When he wasn't making the shots, he didn't. So you're ideally with Zoom Diallo in there, again, I've heard nothing but unbelievably positive things about him, just as advertised as a passer, gets paint touches at will, and just finds his guys. Like I think that is going to absolutely help him, and same with Alex Wilkins. So let's hope that would be phenomenal. But I will add, Spencer, part of that interview with John Rothstein was the news that Mark Pope is not done adding to this roster. He wants a 15th player added to the roster. We've heard the Nikola Kusturica. We've talked about him. Continue, as we said last show, continuing to trend toward UCLA. There's funny business with the intel and the intentional leaks on his side early on that gave us some false hope with Kentucky, unfortunately, but trending quickly toward UCLA. We saw Caleb Orgu take an unofficial visit to Lexington as a reclass candidate, as a potential backup big option, 27 guy coming in, 57th ranked player in the rising junior class, but expected to reclass up, trending quickly toward Arkansas. Arkansas has kind of been the buzz for him for a long time. So we're seeing him explore options. We're seeing some names pop up. What type of player is necessary in your eyes for that 15th spot? Is it a developmental piece that you're playing the long game for, another Braden Hawthorne or whatever the case is? Or do you think that based on what you've heard, that this team needs another immediate impact guy who can come in and contribute day one?
Yeah, for me, I'm pretty sold on the idea that we need another immediate impact guy. I think we need a traditional 2 guard or like a 2-3, but like who is more comfortable at the 2. I think just being honest about our roster, like we just talked about Noah, we talked about Morton a little bit, we talked about Mason Williams. Like, I'm not super sold on Morton being a guy who I think can log minutes, reliably in the SEC. Maybe he turns into that. I don't know, but I think like the analytics and stuff probably tell us like he should probably be a 4th or a 5th guard option on like a really good SEC team. I think Mason Williams, but he's a freshman though, and he can really only play the 1. So like, you got to look at like, okay, so what do we do when like Alex Wilkins goes out? Like if he needs a break, if he's in foul trouble, if God help us, if he gets injured or something, right? And he has to miss 3 or 4 games, like what do we do? We play Morton there, who I'm not super sold on. Okay. Do we move Cam to the 2, which I'm sold on that even less. The stuff on Braden Hawthorne has been very, very mixed bag. So it's like, okay. I think what this team is missing is a traditional 2 guard off the bench who can come in and give us solid minutes, similar to like what Antonio Reeves was when he first got to Kentucky as a junior, going way back. Like, you remember Uncle Julius Mays, like a guy like that who like, I don't need you to be a world beater. I don't need you to be an NBA prospect. I need you to be able to come in and play your role and hit shots and give us some games. You're going to play 14 minutes. Some games, because of foul trouble or injury or whatever, you might need to play 26, 28 minutes. I don't know. But I need you to be a super reliable piece off the bench that can come in and make shots and defend and give us chunk minutes that are more than what I think Morton can give and Hawthorne, or like moving Cam to the 2 or something like that. Because right now, if Wilkins goes out, you say, oh, well, we like Mason Williams. Okay, but then does that involve moving Zoom to the 2? Because I don't like that either. I just think this team needs a traditional shooting guard who can give us real minutes off the bench, who can really be relied on, that heaven forbid if we have an injury or foul trouble or just whatever, we know that we have a guy there who we feel comfortable with playing a bigger role than what I think any of us are probably comfortable playing. Morton, Hawthorne, Cam at the 2, Zoom at the 2. None of those options really speak to me as like a really good, reliable option. So I think that's what we need to go get. Now, is it out there? I don't know. If you can't find that, then sure, you take a development piece. You go after like a Duthiero is like the perfect story of like development piece, 3-star, right? Took a chance on him. He panned out, like didn't finish his career at Kentucky, but got drafted like that. Like, yeah, you go for a development piece like that you think can turn into like another Duthiero or something. But I think priority 1 would be go get a guy who can make an impact off the bench at the 2 spot.
So Shawn, there's that side of the coin, but on the other, Malachi Moreno is the only available big in full 5-on-5 live play right now in practice. Is there any concern there that Frank Kepnong is not going to hold up? John Rothstein, in Pope's interview with Rothstein today, he said Frank is one of the surprises that everybody's going to love, and we know what he can do, yada, 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 yada. He's produced for 6 years if he can stay healthy. Like, there's always that caveat with him. And Reese Potter, he has produced at Miami of Ohio. Is he ready to be, if Frank is out for any extended period of time, if he has another season-ending injury, whatever the case is is Reese going to be the guy who is able to A, stay healthy, but B, produce at an SEC level as a backup big? You know, you want Malachi to play 30-ish minutes a game, and we want to see his game take a step up. But what about those other 10-ish minutes? Do you go backup big for that spot?
I mean, if you lose Malachi, then I mean you're talking about playing, Momcilovic at the 5 and probably going relatively small and just looking entirely different. Now you're going to be able to stretch the floor and do some things that maybe you can't otherwise. So I mean, you're in a tough spot if you're looking at your 15th and where you need to go. I'm still with Spencer. I agree more on the 2 because at full strength and health, like if Kentucky loses Malachi Moreno, we know that the season ends up probably being what it becomes, and it's something we don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you don't go add something else there, then it could hold you back to an extent. That if you stay healthy, you have some pieces that can help you, make a run in the league, hopefully make a run in the NCAA tournament. But what Spencer was talking about, you've got plenty of guys that can slide and play 3-4 that I feel fine with those options. Trent being more of a perimeter guy. Like I like it, but you also want to have some insurance that, like you said, if Wilkins is not available or in foul trouble, that you're not really sacrificing everything that you want to do in the backcourt at the same time. So both feel like needs, but I think the best option to me is just to hold on to Malachi and hope that Frank gives you those 10 to 12, 13 minutes a game and stays healthy. I know that's been a concern even going into this. And if you get in a situation where he's out, then you got to talk about Milan playing some more at that spot. Then who are you sliding in and playing alongside him at the 4? So there's a lot of different angles that you can take. But I do agree with a more traditional 2 guard being able to provide some minutes there at that position to kind of spell guys and also give Kentucky another shooting threat on the floor as well.
Spencer, is this, in your opinion, do you think it's injury concern related, like Cam not being in a place long-term that they feel comfortable with? Or, I've heard on my end that, this could be an extended summer absence where we don't see him at all. We've reported that he's in a boot, but are you concerned that the push for a 15th is because of that? Is it a product of kind of the inconsistency with Braden Hawthorne? And I guess rephrased is how patient should we be with Braden Hawthorne that the breakthrough is coming? I've heard on my end that it's not there yet, but we're week 2. I mean, there's a reason why there are 8 weeks of practice, and then there's preseason, and then there's the actual season. Is how patient should we be with Braden before the panic sets in that we're not getting what we need out of either of those spots with Cam or Braden?
Yeah, you just don't want to be in that spot, right? You just don't want to put your program in a position where you're having to bet on one or the other, and let's hope one of them pans out. Like you want to, because like thrusting Braden in a situation that isn't the best for him and in a role that isn't the best for him doesn't help him come along. Like, he needs to, he's never played a Division I basketball game. So he needs to so thrusting him into a role early on in the season that maybe he's not ready for, but who knows, maybe over the course of the season, he gives himself a bigger and bigger role, as he, adjusts to the speed of the game and all sorts of stuff. Like, who knows, but you want to at least give him that option to ease into it versus right now, if you don't add a 15th and if there's no Cam for some reason, if he has a setback or if he's kind of in and out of the lineup because of an injury issue, kind of like what we've seen with Frank over his career, you're putting Braden now in a really tough spot. Or on the flip side, if Braden's not ready and now you've got Cam kind of in and out of the lineup, are you creating a situation where at the end of the year last year where Cam kind of rushed back and he's really playing when he shouldn't be? And does that cause that's also not fair to Cam either, right? To put him in a position where he feels the need to do that because we don't have the appropriate depth and stuff to be ready for those situations. And so I think it's probably a little bit of that. I think if just being honest, if they were seeing Braden be a kind of a star in the making and a guy that they think could really, really make an impact, would there be a push for Nikola Costa Rica, if I'm getting that right? Like I don't probably think so, but I mean, again, what do I know? So I think it's a bit of both. I think it's like we see a need, and also could we get by without that need? Okay, potentially, but it would be putting all of our eggs in the Cam and Braden basket. And is that fair to either one of them or both of them? And probably not. So it's probably a little bit of both.
If you listen to how Pope was talking about all of his surprises today, we had Trent Noah, the guy getting talked about the least and showing out is Trent Noah. Trent Noah, he's got physical. He can really shoot it. Part of the issue was the creation, yada, yada, yada. And then this Usman Njai is really, really interesting. Like when you get to lay eyes on him, he's just so long and he really shoots the ball. Justin McBride is a guy that hasn't been talked about a ton, who has a ton of reps and is a very, very versatile player. Brings some physicality. Like the way he's talking about all these guys, Frank Epnong, if he can stay healthy, everybody's seen what he can do when he's healthy. He could really have a big impact for us. And then we've been talking for a year about Braden Hawthorne, and we think he's got it. He's got a really high ceiling and a ton of potential. Just doesn't, carry the same weight as some of the comments with the other guys, and it's a concern for me. I'll just be honest. It is a concern for me. Real quickly before we transition with the World Cup going on, I want to give a shout out to our friends at BetMGM. It's time for the world's top stars to go head-to-head on the pitch. Grab this odds boost token, join the excitement, and make your World's Game moment. Activate your token for any World's Game at Bet, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. And then for Wednesday in the round of 32, when the U.S. scores, you score 2, win a share of $500,000 in bonus bets for every U.S. goal. Place a $5 or more pre-match bet on any World's Game match in which the U.S. is playing, and apply your goal rush token. You'll win a share of $500,000 in bonus bets for every goal scored by the U.S. in the match. The bonus bets will be split among all eligible winners after the match. Shawn, have you been getting into the World Cup?
I have been getting into the World Cup. I love seeing the United States do well. Obviously, like that's where it is for me. But since I got into the athletics director side of things, it's allowed me to be involved with more sports. And I had watched soccer, but not to the level that I have since I started working at Douglas. So like once I started going to those games and understanding how the game is played and the rules. So this is my first World Cup since doing that. So I have been finding myself turning it on every single time I get a chance to watch it. So I have been enjoying the World Cup for sure. And excited to see the United States play again.
Guys, just a secret that not many people know about me. I hate soccer. Absolutely despise it. I've hated soccer my whole life. I think the sport is the worst thing that God's ever put on this earth. Despise all of it. At least I did until this stupid event. Oh man, it has just wrapped its claws around me, and I'm invested now, and now I can't stop watching it. I've watched every single match every single day, and I talked with Stephen Peak about this because he is a soccer just fanatic, just obsesses over all this stuff. I think it's just absolute nonsense. It's a big bunch of poppycock, and he has talked himself, like he has convinced me a little bit, and ever since then, man, just the last week or two has just it's been a life changer for me. So I will admit that I was wrong. I'm just like, you'll never convince me to watch like an MLS match on a random weekday or something. Like no chance at all I'll ever be bought in like just as a casual watcher. But for this event, you've sold me. You have absolutely sold me. So shout out to the World Cup. I am counting down the minutes to tomorrow against Bosnia. We're going to kick some Bosnian ass. I'm really, really excited for it. Shout out USA. Go USA. I need like bald eagles and like fireworks and stuff going off behind me. Anyway, all right. Enough of that. Athletics director. You brought that up, Shawn. Today was a big day. It was, we had a super chat. Hold on. Before we do that, let's hit the super chat before Denzel never passed to Trent. What's the context behind that? I mean, Denzel didn't typically pass much ever. So yes, to Trent specifically, I don't think. Did you catch any of that, Spencer? That I think there's a theory that Denzel just didn't like Trent and wasn't passing. At least in the chat, they think that Trent was not treated correctly by Denzel.
I think it probably came up when you were talking about how Mark talked about Trent might have suffered last year from like the lack of creation or whatever that we had on the court. So I think it might have come from that. But yeah, like Denzel was not like a super gifted passer. It wasn't that he was a ball hog. It's just some people have an eye for it and some people don't, which is why he was probably never the best option to run the point for 32 minutes a game for us. But I do agree with that. Yeah, he probably suffered a bit from that, not having a guy like Jalen Lowe or like what Zoom Diallo can be or whatever out there to like kind of create some stuff. I think the ball kind of stuck with Denzel sometimes. So I do agree with that to a point. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Denzel for like learning on the fly. Like, I mean, it was a really, really tough job that he had to take on. And yes, unfortunately, guys like Trent had to, were on the receiving end of not producing, as a product that I hated for him, but kind of had to do what you had to do. And Denzel, for what was thrown his way, I think he managed it as well as anybody. Do you think he gets his waiver, Spencer?
No, I was arguing. I didn't mean to, but it just kind of happened. I tweeted about Denzel and it got a couple hundred likes, which for me is like crazy. But it also made its way over to some Florida fans, and they started chiming in. So I was chatting with a couple of them very politely on Twitter. And no, he has no basis to get a waiver. And I've worked on waivers before. That was part of one of my roles, was like documenting and putting together documentation to submit for waivers. Working with like our compliance team, we had like in-house counsel. Like I've helped put those waivers together. There is no basis for him to get a waiver. There's no rule that currently exists that would allow for Denzel Aberdeen to get a waiver, absent of some other extenuating circumstance, like documented mental health, a family situation that really took away from his availability to play, obviously injury, things like that. From my understanding, that's not the case. What's funny is the other thing that you can claim is coaching competence. You can say, well, my coaches didn't like me very much, or like this or that. Like you can actually put together documentation for that. Or my coach just didn't know what he was doing. Like, look, he got fired. It's the exact same coach that is filing for the waiver. So Todd Golden is saying, yeah, I didn't play this dude very much as a freshman. Can't tell you why, but I didn't play him very much. So I think he deserves another year. So that kind of totally upends the argument anyways for anything that they could put together, absent of some other thing that I don't think exists either. So the only way he would get it is if the NCAA just says, forget it. We don't want the fight. Like, we don't want the bad press. So here you go. That is the only way that I think he could get it.
It is funny how every time Todd Golden talks, he's like, it's common sense. Obviously, he's going to get a waiver. Like, if the NCAA has a clue, they're obviously going to give him. It's like, don't gaslight us. No, it would be a slimy move for him to get his waiver. Like, am I rooting for it? Like, I think Denzel's a good kid. I think, I was unnecessarily harsh on him earlier in the season. So I did kind of like the story of redemption as the year went on, him taking on a difficult, and so there's a small smidge part of me that's like, it'd be kind of cool. But from a competitive standpoint, like, I'm rooting for like him to not get it because he's now a rival. He's now playing for the guy that we're competing with for the top of the SEC ranking. So no, I hope he doesn't get it because it would make Florida better. But it is a fascinating situation. It's Todd Golden, man. Like every time he talks, I'm like, what are you talking about? You're just totally making all of this up. No basis for a waiver at all. Back to pre waiver rant. Mitch Barnhart was his last day today after a couple decades in Lexington. Transitioned to J-Bat with from Michigan State, known as arguably the best fundraiser in all of college sports. A lot to like about the future, but about the past, what can you say about Mitch Barnhart and what he accomplished in Lexington? The diplomas in hands and championship rings on fingers, as he said so eloquently, many a time over the years.
You can really say a lot. Good hires, bad hires. It kind of goes. I guess that's the run that any athletic director has for decades, right? You're going to make some that you feel good about, and you're going to have some that you don't feel good about. But there were championships won. If you look across the landscape, you've won a national championship in volleyball. You've won it in basketball. The football program had success that it never had before at any point in its program's history. And the baseball program, the consistency that you've been able to build there over the last decade, like there's a lot of good things that you can point to, but there's also a lot over the last 4 or 5 years with this new era of collegiate athletics where you can say, well, did we do enough to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a good spot? But just a changing of the guard, and now another guy gets an opportunity to see and put his prints on what this athletic department does. And I think it's needed. I think it's needed because I think you're how we've talked, not just coaching, but in athletics overall, the last 4 or 5 years was a changing thing in a climate that it still is changing. And if you're not fully leaned into wanting to be a part of that or being creative, then you're going to kind of be left behind. And I felt like Kentucky was kind of getting to a point to where it needed something. And I think it's coming at a good time, honestly.
Spencer, you've been around several ADs, parts of several different administrations of different levels and different programs, different conferences. What can you say about your experience? Like, did you have any experience working alongside Mitch Barnhart? Being at UK Athletics for a period.
No, he couldn't. Unless he watches his show, he would not pick me out of a lineup. Anybody else? No, I don't really. I've met him a couple times, but I wouldn't. I didn't have any meaningful interactions with him. Yeah, I'll echo everything Shawn said. I mean, when you're anywhere for 20 plus years, like, you're going to get some good and some bad, right? And I think exactly what Shawn said. It is coming at a good time. I've been at a lot of schools with different ADs, and when I was at Oklahoma, we had Joe Castiglione, who I think for a long time was the best AD in the country. I think like what he did at Oklahoma for so long, including then getting him into the SEC, was kind of his swan song. And then he said the same thing. He said, it's time for a new leader. Like, I think I've accomplished good stuff, but it's time for a fresh take on the athletic program going forward. And I think that's what Kentucky needed as well. I think there are some real bright spots of the Barnhart era. And we can't say thank you enough for a lot of what he did. He took our athletic department and he really modernized it. He took us into the 21st century in terms of, like, look at the facility investments for soccer and baseball and softball and what has happened at Memorial Coliseum and the Rupp renovations. He was super involved in the Rupp renovations and things like that. So a lot of really good stuff. And then there's some bad stuff too. I think like the souring between Mitch Barnhart and Cal is what ultimately led to the drop in the program. I think there are two sides to that coin, and I think that they're somewhat both to blame is my view from a distance. I think like Joe Kraft is out of date. Like, that should have probably been like, we should have had a new basketball facility 5, 6, 7 years ago, just some things like that. Right. That I think are also meaningful, and like, we waited too long and now we're behind in some of these areas, or it kind of set the program back. So ultimately though, like, my biggest takeaway is Mitch seems to be a great human being. He seems to be a great man. I think he wanted to do right in everything that he did. I think he represented the university very, very well. He was well respected across the country. I think that's ultimately his legacy. And then you can kind of cut up good stuff and bad stuff like anybody's career over 20 or 25 years.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap with Mark Stoops and the transition to Will Stein, where you can look at the Mark Stoops era and view it as a massive success, and that he raised the floor and what the standard and what the expectation is, and kind of just attacked it at a different angle, that like, it is cool to win cheerleading championships and go to Omaha and compete in rifle and go be track U, like those things that a lot of high major programs, they look at it and go, who cares? All we care about is Saturdays in the fall, and then Tuesdays and Saturdays in the winter. And outside of that, we're just wasting we're passing time to get to those points. He made it cool to root for a lot of those other sports and prioritize a lot of them. And when it came time to, the budget and trying to figure out firing coaches, and, he was really cognizant of like, hey, if I make a decision to fire this guy, I also have to do it understanding that this program may not be getting, jerseys next season. Like he was so mindful of all of the scholarship sports and Olympic sports across campus, not just basketball and football. Now, does that mean that some of, that a time hits like with Mark Stoops where you need something fresh, you need somebody who's a little bit more forward thinking and adapting with the times, and NIL being just a chaotic mess, and having somebody who is not just comfortable, riding the wave, but being in front of the wave and trying to chase it and being part of the action. I think that was kind of where the miscommunication was, and in how we led to a kind of a plateau a little bit, where we did need a new change. There was one person who could have taken this job in in a fundraising era, somebody who was known as the best in the world at what he does, in Jay Batt. So like, I love the forward thinking of that. There is just a lot of the parallels are there with Will Stein, and just needing something fresh and new, appreciating the old, but also understanding that there is a time for the next era. So shout out Mitch Barnhart. I know he's a polarizing topic in the world of BBN, but I personally, he's been nothing but kind to me personally. I appreciate all of that he has done for UK athletics, while also appreciating what's to come in the future of UK athletics under Jay Batt.
My lasting memory of Mitch Barnhart is at Texas A&M, 2018, the OT football game down there. A&M shoots off the cannon when they score, and we're there in the end zone, and they score, and it goes off, and he puts his arm, his whole hand, over on my shoulder. He thought he was going down. I thought he was ducking for cover. So I'll never forget, looking up and didn't know he was standing next to me. Next thing, he's leaning on me. So I'm like, "You good, man?" Tough loss. Literally.
I feel you. Yeah, that was a rough one. Quick message from a new friend of ours that we introduced last week. Zen AI is the home of vibecasting, a new way to capture and share conversations. It helps anyone turn a conversation into something worth sharing, a podcast, a reel, or a TikTok with no production skills required. Hit record on your phone, have a real conversation, and Zen AI's AI producer handles the rest. Clean up, clips, all of it. That simple. Right now, Zen AI is paying new Vibecasters to make their first sports cast about their favorite team. Go live during the game or record your takes after. Bring your own co-host or find one in Zen AI's network. Zen AI is currently in invite-only beta, so head to zenai.ai to join the waitlist in the show description. So appreciate their partnership as well. Couple of other, fun nuggets from Pope's conversation with John Rothstein, pushing for a home and home with St. John. Spencer, your thoughts on, after getting a little taste of Rick Pitino? I'm not sure that's appropriately phrased, but getting competing against Rick Pitino on the hardwood. Yeah. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Home with St. John's.
Yeah, I think. So I got mixed thoughts on it for two reasons. One, we seem to have Patino's number, but we seem to give Pitino the yips just in general. He just kind of forgets how to coach, and his team forgets how to play a little bit when he plays the Cat. So I like it from that standpoint. What I don't like is that the Mark Pope era and the end of the Cal era has been really, really bad in Madison Square Garden. I can't remember the last time we went to Madison Square Garden and won a game. It feels like it's been a little while. We got clocked by UCLA a few years ago. I was at the game. I convinced my father-in-law to spend a bunch of money and fly out to New York with me. I was like, "We're going to win." That was Oscar's second year, and that
was like a 25-point loss, wasn't it? That was a bad one.
It was a dud of a game. Yeah, we were down by 20 points a couple different times during the game. I don't remember what the final was, but it was kind of a dud of a game, And then we got clocked by Ohio State in year one. We got clocked by Michigan State. So I don't love the idea of going back to Madison Square Garden, but I do think we have a tough schedule already. We do have one slot open, and the home schedule in the non-conference is pretty bad. We get Louisville, and that's it. So it would be great. I mean, the season ticket holders invest a lot of money, a lot of time, and stuff in the program. It would be good to give them another quality home game in the non-conference. So that would be cool. Get Pitino back in Rupp. That would be cool. So I'm for it. It'd also be cool to play somebody else besides Pitino. We've also played Pitino a ton over the last 20, 25 years. So it would also be cool if we wanted to mix in, I don't know. I'm just thinking top of mind, who would be cool. I'm not going to speculate, but it'd be cool to one of those opponents that we haven't really gotten a lot of run with them for some reason. It'd be cool to get a program like that on the books as well. So I'm for it, but also if we go and get somebody else, I'm okay with that too.
Shawn, Kerr Kriisa is joining La Familia. Do you have any passionate takes about the number 77 coming back to Memorial Coliseum?
He'll add some entertainment to it for sure. He fits that. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool thing to see.
It's a little all right. We've talked about the Kerr Kriisa era in Lexington. We've shared, on this show some details about how that unfolded in the breakup and him not participating in senior night and the reasons behind that, because it wasn't like a totally perfect relationship at the very end between Mark Pope and Kerr Kriisa, because what was, very comparable to the Cam Williams injury this past season. When you break a foot, you have a decision to make. Am I coming back or am I holding out? He decided to hold out. Cam came back, and Kerr, doing that at the time that he did, very intentionally did it with the medical red shirt in mind, to be able to preserve one more season of eligibility, despite being potentially able to play at the end of the season with Kentucky's point guard situation in an absolute disaster. So I think there was a little bit of bad blood there at the end. He goes to Cincinnati. Kerr's he's a character. Like, you just have to know what you're signing up for when you bring in a Kerr Kriisa. So do you feel any type of way about Kerr's return, Spencer? Does it matter to you? TBT, La Familia, all of that stuff. Does any of it matter to you? And is it a chance to reconnect with BBN after a little bit of a iffy tenure, one and done season here?
Yeah, I mean, I like Kerr. I didn't know a ton about the breakup and all that. Obviously, it was kind of a mutual parting of ways, was my understanding. But I don't fault Kerr at all for that. Like, at the end of the day, in this day and age, like, you have to do what's best for you. And Pope can coach for 30 years, 40 years if he wants to. Kerr only gets to play for 4. So if he wants to preserve that year, I say more power to him. So I'm almost on Team Kerr on that side.
I like it.
Yeah, I think selfishly as a fan, I would have loved to have had him back, and yeah, he would have helped us. But that would have been selfish of me. Like, Kerr, you have to take care of yourself. And again, you just have such a short window to play this game, and then it's gone. And so I have no ill will for him for that. And I would love to have him back. I'd love to have some passion. Imagine if we play Louisville again. Think about how heated that was last year. And then you throw Kerr Kriisa in the middle of the court. That thing could get explosive quick. So yeah, I'm all for it. Let's do it. Let's have some fun.
And I think just from a competitive standpoint, he gives Kentucky by far the best chance of winning games. I love the nostalgia of Willie Cauley-Stein and all that. But if we actually watch the games of La Familia last year, there ain't a lot left in the tank. And there's a reason why Willie Cauley-Stein was pretty outspoken this time, saying, hey, I'm done. Like, this is my last ride, and I'm very proud for it to be my last ride, because I don't think the world needs to, cloud the fun, memories of Willie Cauley-Stein at his absolute best with some of the, old man stuff at the very end. Like, if you're going to compete in TBT, and again, is the event, the event is what it is. It's a way to pass the time during the summer and enjoy a little bit of nostalgia. Like, I think fans, there's a very small section of the fan base that just despises TBT, and I'm like, it's harmless. It's just the alternative is watching baseball. Like, what difference does it make? So if you're going to compete in this event, you have to bring in the Kerr Kriisas of the world. Like, you got to get younger and younger and younger. And we gotta, I love Aaron Harrison, love Andrew Harrison, but kind of got to, send them out to pasture at some point and adapt with the times. And I think Kerr Kriisa is the perfect example of that. So yeah, shout out Kerr, and I'm excited to chat with him. He's definitely an interesting guy. Anything else we want to hit on before we wrap this thing up? Shawn, we haven't gotten a ton of your big picture takes about the roster construction and, post Milan and all that stuff. Anything that you've been dying to talk about, anything that's been marinating a little bit in the take chamber for you?
I guess just the back-to-back of getting Malachi and then getting Milan right there on the heels of that. It was just a massive turning point for momentum for what we had talked about all off season, right? Like, when this thing first started in late March, early April, we didn't really have a whole lot of confidence in what it could look like. And we kept saying, hey, play the waiting game, but it's not looking great. You got to get this. If they fall into this and this, then they probably fall into a pretty good team. They seem to have done that to this point. And now, like, going into last year, all the things that we were saying and everyone else was saying turned out to not matter. It actually ended up being a horrible run. So now I'm choosing to look at this thing and not judge anything until I see what it looks like on the court together in November, because we know that that's what matters most. But They've added shooting. They've got some size. They've got some length. They've got some versatility. When it comes to backcourt guys, they've got some guys that can kind of get downhill and create and do some things. So I like what they've done, but I want to see what this thing looks like and comes together. And the biggest thing about it, guys, is can they stay healthy? Because this isn't something that can afford to lose a guy or two. There's plenty of rosters around the country that can't lose a guy, and this is a program right now that can.
Yeah. I totally agree. Going back to the 15th roster spot, something we in that domino of Moreno, Milan, Ryan Hampton, and the momentum of the Dark Pope and all that stuff. Spencer, has your mind changed at all about Ryan Hampton potentially being the 15th guy? Like, do you view him as hey, if we don't find any other options, he's still reclass eligible? Like, he's saying all the right things about not wanting to reclass. And, Dad has said over and over and over again that he's not going to do it. But the option is there if you are desperate that Ryan Hampton could be the guy.
I would take it. Because again, a great situation, similar to like maybe what Nicola would have been, which is like, we're not going to put the weight of the world on your shoulders. We just need, some nights it's going to be 14, some nights it'll be 18, some nights it might be upper 20s, depending on what's going on. But like, we're not going to put the weight of the world on your shoulders. We just need a reliable piece. Now, the downside of him, we talked about it last time I was on, which was like his shooting leaves a bit to be desired. And there's some physicality stuff that, currently he has 12 months. More than that, he has close to 18 months to fix and kind of get ready. So you're kind of shorting that runway quite a bit. But would he develop better here over the year, and then we can get some stuff out of him? He's not going to play 5 years here anyway, so you might as well get an extra year out of him. So if there's no better options, and if that's a legitimate option, I would take it. Yeah, because I do think we need another guy who can play that spot.
Shawn, before we wrap up, I know you're a big schedule guy, big quad one guy. We got the full SEC schedule. I mean, we got most of the entire schedule, but the full SEC slate, and it's Ole Miss, Tennessee, Vanderbilt as the 3 home and homes for the Cats. Hosting Arkansas and John Calipari, not a return trip to Fayetteville. Any other takeaways anything of those schools jump out at you, how the schedule's set up, or anything else that jumped out at you when the SEC reveal was done?
Not anything too crazy, just because we know that the league obviously is gotten better in recent years, and we saw that from a year ago, that you can't just assume anything's a win when you get into league play. Like the familiarity with these teams, with these coaches. Obviously, getting the game at Rupp Arena and things when you're talking about with John Calipari in Arkansas. So just there's going to be a lot of Q1 opportunities in that stretch of play. And we also know that what Kentucky does in non-conference play is going to be such an important thing. They left a lot to be desired there a year ago. They actually ended up building their stretch run and got into the tournament with their stretch of SEC wins and been able to put a 4 or 5 game win streak here and there together. But I mean, look, there's so much familiarity and so much talent in this league and good coaches that it doesn't matter who you're playing. You're going to get tested. We know, Will Wade at LSU is going to provide a different factor than what we've seen from that program the last few years. So a lot of familiar faces you're going to see. Vandy, Joel Justice at Vandy. Like that's one that you're going to get to see there too. So there's some cool storylines and things hidden within from staffs and things, but not too much jumps out. It's one of those schedules that you got to find a way to run the gauntlet in league play, and that goes for everybody.
Spencer, not making you put your money where your mouth is or make any official prediction, but loosely total number of losses, I guess, in the league and on the year. Are you going into this season saying it's going to be a single digit loss team? Is it back to 10 plus losses? Like how at entering week 3 of summer practices and knowing the layout of this non-conference schedule and now seeing the teams that will be playing in the conference, how are you feeling?
It's probably about a 10 loss team. I think, like, when all's said and done, 10, 11, 12, maybe, depending, so, to Shawn's point, so much of it'll depend on what we can do in the non-conference to kind of set the table. And I talked about it last time, like, none of the games in the non-conference scare me to the point where I'm like, we can't win that. Like, if they were sending us to Cameron Indoor as part of the AC Challenge, I'd be like, I don't know if we can win that game. But Virginia, like that's winnable. Home against Louisville, that's winnable. Like all your non-conference games are very winnable. So if you can put together a non-conference slate where you only drop like maybe one of those games, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, maybe we do end up having less. But if we drop 3 in the non-conference, then our path to 10 is probably gets there a lot quicker. And then in SEC play, it's like it's always so simple for me. It's 2 questions. Can you protect home court and can you go undefeated at home? Which with this home slate, I think we can. It's a very, very good home slate, but I think we can definitely go undefeated at home during league play. And then it's like, how many of those games on the road can you steal? So if you can win 9 at home and then you steal 4 on the road, that's a 13-5 SEC slate. And if you've only dropped 1 in the non-conference, maybe even 2, you're finishing the regular season with 7 losses. 1 in the SEC tournament max, 1 in the NCAA tournament max. So that's less than 10. That's 9. All right. But it's kind of a narrow pathway where you gotta protect home court and you gotta really make, like Sean's point, you gotta really make a difference in the non-conference and then kind of see where you can get to. So my guess is probably like 10 or 11 losses, but there's a long way to go between now and November.
Lots and lots to go here over the next several months, four-ish months and change before we get to just start seeing what this team is like, get in front of them for the very first time with the pro day and big Blue Madness, Blue White and all that stuff, exhibitions. We still haven't gotten the exhibition schedule, which I think is interesting. I remember they announced the Georgetown and Purdue game super early. We still haven't gotten either of those announcements quite yet, so I'm interested to see where there clearly is not going to be one of the high profile events. Hopefully it's somebody fun and the storylines are good with without much of the. Are you rooting for a Purdue kind of matchup again, or do you wanting does that even matter to you, Spencer?
Yeah, I'm rooting for it. I assume it'll be home because I think we just make too much money off of those games to do what Purdue does and go on the road. So you got to get somebody to come to us. But yeah, why not? Like, again, we can't get so wrapped up in what happens as a result of it. But it's good. It's good. It's a good test. And honestly, like it's a good. The best thing that it does, like early in the year, like you kind of have jitters as a player and as a team, and you just what I mean. And it takes you a few games to kind of work those out. And we play the Champions Classic so early. Like it's good to kind of have a game that really gives you the jitters because you have like kind of this marquee opponent coming into your building in October or whatever. And last year we had 2 of them. So yeah, I'm all for it. Let's do it. But here's the other thing though, and I'm sorry, I know we're a little over time, but the other thing too though is because like we dealt with this in my different stops, it is actually really important to those schools to get the money from those games. So you look at like a Center College in Danville, or you look at Transy right there in Lexington. Like you look at these schools that they pour their hearts out also in the state of Kentucky, and their budgets are so shoestring, like going and playing a game at Rupp, like that can fund a huge chunk of their season. That can cover like their whole travel for the season, for instance, or all their food and meals. And it can pay for 4 or 5 kids' scholarships for the whole year just by playing one game at Rupp. So we always wrestle with that too at my different spots. It's like, do we want the best game possible? But we also have the relationships with these schools that mean a lot to the state and to the area and everything. So I'm also a big fan of like, maybe let's do one of each. Let's throw a bone to Center or to Transy or something like that. And then let's give a big game as well, because I do think it's important to invest in those smaller schools in the state to try to help them along as well.
I love it. I love it. Big fan of that idea. And, I wouldn't mind doing the, Pikeville thing and like even going somewhere. I know the Rupp angle is huge, but, I did love what they did with, going to Pikeville for that Blue-White game that one year. And that was a fun, unique, creative. There are ways to be creative. Let's be creative. Let's, prioritize the local communities and things like that, but, help out our state and all the. I agree with all of it. All right, let's wrap this thing up. This was a fun show. Appreciate getting your minds together, the Smiths' minds together. It always is an absolute treat for BBN. So appreciate you both for coming on. Let's wrap this thing up. Where can fans find your work, Shawn Smith?
You can find me there at _Coach S Smith on X.
And Spencer.
Good job calling it X, Sean. Nice. You're up at the time. I'm Spencer _Smith 10.
And we're not related, by the way.
Dude, there were so many comments talking about how you guys are both very handsome, first and foremost. So shout out to the people of the comments finding both of you very handsome, but also wondering, saying that there are overlaps in your looks and believing that, you know, maybe you guys are related in some form or fashion. You're not related for just so happens to be a Smith show.
It would be funny if he popped out a screen and then just popped up on this side of me.
So, somebody said that they're sitting on a couch together just with two cameras. I thought that was funny. So yeah, shout out to the Smiths. Find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim X, whatever. At Jack Pilgrim KSR. Go subscribe to KSR Plus. You can get it for $1 for try it out for 5 days and see if you like it. I know you will like it. And yeah, go do that. Make sure you're subscribed right here on the KSR YouTube channel. Appreciate all the comments and all that. But make sure you're subscribed because that saves Stephen Peake's job. And if not, he's going to get fired and that'd be very sad. So I appreciate you guys tuning in and we will catch you next time. Go Cats.